Welcome, my merry band of OSATers, to this, the 25th episode of the Sockmatician podcast. My name is Nathan Taylor, also known as Sockmatician here on YouTube, also on Ravelry, Instagram and Twitter. Please feel free to like, subscribe, follow, do all of those things. Just engage, join in the conversation, head over to my group on Ravelry and join there. There's a growing band of people who are always happy to have a chat about all sorts of things, not just things which are Sockmatician related. So welcome. This episode comes to you from a rather dull day. It's Thursday the 16th of June, to put it on the map. It's been raining very, very heavily and doesn't look like it's going to stop anytime soon. You can still see there's quite a lot of bright light coming this way, so my face is already flaring. But as it's, I need to get something sorted out. I'd love to get. We don't have any curtains, so I can't put anything across. I did once try, as I think I explained once, to put some black towels over, but there's 4 massive windows here, and I don't have enough towels, and it's nothing to hang them from. So I think we're just going to have to put up with it. So how are you? What have you been up to? It's been not a hugely busy time. It's not that long since my last episode. I am definitely trying to keep up with this 2-weekly schedule for everybody and for my own sanity as well. And there hasn't been a great deal going on. But what have I been doing? Well, last weekend, it was Saturday, Ben and I went with his brother and his partner and parents, Richard and Noel, down to Headcorn in Kent, which is where one of Ben's cousins, Neil, lives with his wife Anu and their children Tamsin, Lucille and William. And it was a big party. It was essentially a 50th birthday party for Neil, but that happened back in April. So he was calling this a reasons to be cheerful party, and he asked people to wear things that gave them reasons to be cheerful. And that could be all sorts of things. I didn't get that memo. Ben didn't pass that on to me. I happened to be wearing a hand-knitted tank top. Sweater vest, I think you call them in America. And I knitted it myself, and knitting clearly gives me many reasons to be cheerful, so I called that my reason, and I pretended that was why I was wearing it. It wasn't at all. I just genuinely didn't know. It's coincidence. It was a really, really lovely do. They've got a beautiful house with a huge garden, and they'd put up several marquees. There was a little performance space. They're a very musical family, and the children got up and performed various things at the piano and guitars and things. And Neil himself played electric guitar, which I'd never seen him do before. I didn't know that side of him existed, so that was wonderful. And it was a really, really lovely day. It was bittersweet. One of Ben's other cousins, Simon, wasn't able to be there because his wife is very ill with cancer at the moment. His wife Sarah, who is a divine human being, and she's battling very, very strongly and brilliantly, and she's had all sorts of treatment and was in hospital, and she'd been recovering from a bout of septicemia because her immune system is low. So all of those things, that was quite difficult. And for me personally, I found out while we were on our way to the party that my Uncle Graham, who's my dad's brother and my godfather, had passed away. He's not been well for a long time. He suffers with diabetes and all sorts of other ailments, but it doesn't seem like it was one of those things that finished him off. We're still not sure, but it seems like he'd had an accident at home and a fall which led to his death, which is very, very sad. And I didn't want Ben's family to know that was happening, because it wasn't about, the day wasn't about that. It was reasons to be cheerful, so I think they've now been told, but I wanted to keep that private. So I was dealing with that as well as all sorts of things. So it was genuinely a very bittersweet day, and I'm not saying this for any fishing for sympathy kind of thing. This isn't the kind of stuff that I would normally go into on this podcast. This is not my personal form of therapy. It genuinely isn't. It's something for people to enjoy, hopefully, and come back to and talk about some knitting stuff, which I'll get around to in a minute. But it was those were things that were preying on my mind. And I think while it is wonderful to have reasons to be cheerful, that can make you evaluate the other side of life as well. as has happened over the last few days, my thoughts and love and best wishes go out to everybody, not just in Orlando after the horrific shootings at Pulse nightclub there, but to everybody across the world, be they LGBT or not, who feels that this has in some way affected them. I am flying my rainbow flag quite literally out of my window there. Ben and I have a large rainbow flag, and it is flying out of my window there. And listen, I know a lot of people criticise people on the internet for changing a picture and saying that doesn't actually do anything. Well, what it does is it shows support. It shows other people that here's somebody who might feel the same way that you do about something. And I think those kinds of community gestures are really, really important. I genuinely think that. I was so proud and so pleased that Casey, in the back ends of the Ravelry website, had put the rainbow flag up on the Ravelry logo, and I know a lot of people, my knitting friends, felt the same way about that. It showed a wonderful message. It showed that Ravelry is a safe place for all people, regardless of sexuality or gender, and I think that that's a very, very important thing. There's a lot of us about that, and the day after the atrocities in Orlando, I went to a vigil in Old Compton Street. Old Compton Street has traditionally been one of the gay village areas of London. It's sort of not so much now. Other businesses are moving in, and it's becoming much more pan rather than gay, and it's really sort of inclusive, but it still has a history and a legacy of that. And I wasn't able to go there for the main part of the vigil because I was still at work, but as soon as I finished work, about an hour later, I went and met Ben and went over there, and it was very moving, actually, really, really moving to see so many people. And I saw the photographs of before I'd arrived, and the street was completely mobbed. Now, for me, what was amazing was this wasn't something that had been, it wasn't like an official Pride event that had taken months to set up with corporate sponsorship and all that kind of stuff going on. It was a spontaneous outpouring of sympathy, love and grief, and people wanted to be together. By the time I got there were still groups of people singing John Lennon's Imagine in the street. There was one woman who was doing a brilliant job, because there's lots of pauses in that song. Imagine all the people. Da, 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 da. I actually don't know the words myself, but imagine there's no heaven. It's easy, and in all of those gaps, she was saying the next lyric so that people who didn't know it could then join in and sing. There was a collection on the road of candles and rainbow-coloured glitter strewn among them, making a beautiful, beautiful, not a shrine, but just a symbol of peace there. There were just people were just getting on and being together. I saw people walking down the streets with tears in their eyes. It was incredibly moving. All of the theatres there had changed all of their screen notice boards, things that were not like physical posters, but things like on dot screens these days, to showing the rainbow flag as a gesture of solidarity, and it was really, really special. And it struck me that it doesn't matter. You can. I'm going to phrase this the best way I can. You can attack this community with as much hate as you can throw at us, but we will respond with love. We will respond with unity, community, togetherness, sharing, grief, yes, but mostly love. And it taught me everything I needed to know about being a proud part of the LGBTQ community, and I will always be so. And it was a very special thing, seeing the photographs from other vigils around this country and around the world as well. It has brought more than one tear to my eye. That's sort of it for my roundup section. I haven't really been up to much. I've been working at the box office, and that's still going the same way as usual. I've been doing a little bit of knitting, little bit trying to get as much as I can done. I don't have a great deal of spare time at the moment, so I don't have any FOs to show you. But there's various other stuff that I want to share. Let's just plough straight in. I've got a couple of questions from the podcast questions thread and the group in Ravelry. And okay, says Nits to Say Sane, who's Alan from Cumbria. This isn't a question, but a request. Show us your dictionary. Okay. Well, I'm not going to pretend that I've got the most extensive and up-to-date dictionary in the world. I do love my dictionary, I really, really do. This one I bought it new, and I just looked at the dust sheet, and it comes from 2003, so it's already quite old. It is quite large. It's the Collins English Dictionary, complete and unabridged. It's a thick, weighty, heavy tome, and I have spent many, many happy hours just sort of delving into it and finding a new word for the day. Here's one that I didn't know, really. I could open a page and just enjoy finding words. I opened a page that I just randomly just now, and the top right-hand word is eruptive. It's an adjective, and it means erupting or tending to erupt, or involving or causing eruption. Well, not eruption as in like a volcanic eruption, but eruptive is with an I-R-R-U-P-T-I-V-E. So if I go back to look at what erupt means, so erupt is an intransitive verb, and it means to enter forcibly or suddenly. It's brilliant. So like you think of something erupting, something like an explosion, but this is like something coming inwards rather than outwards. Love it. Erupt, so you enter forcibly or suddenly. To enter a region suddenly and in very large numbers, or of population, to increase suddenly and greatly. See, I didn't know that. I love this dictionary. And honestly, when I've often gone to it because I want to check on the spelling or check on the pronunciation of a word, I often find myself getting sidetracked and go, I didn't know what that was. Oh, if I open a page near the one I'm looking for, then I'll go, I've just turned the page, again, very randomly, and the top right word, again, is intarsia. Now, I've often said intarsia because of the SIA, but my dictionary here is telling me, in the phonetics, it's intarsia. So I will now amend my own pronunciation of the word intarsia, and I shall go back to that. Yes, decorative or pictorial mosaic of inlaid wood or sometimes ivory of a style developed in the Italian Renaissance and used especially on wooden wall panels. It is the art of practice of making such mosaics. Number 3, in knitting, an individually worked motif. So there we are. So I'm in a rabbit hole. I must stop. Now this dictionary, I have to say, it holds a lot of sort of botanical and scientific terms. I'm just trying to see if I can just have a quick look. I'm not going to be able to find any now that I'm looking for. But it has a lot of words in it that wouldn't necessarily be used in every day, and I'm not a botanist. I'm really not. But I do love it. It weighs a lot, and it does call itself the foremost authority on the language of today. So, Ellen, there we are. That is my dictionary, and that is my go-to reference manual for all things wordy. The other question that I have here, I have answered this before on the podcast, but it relates to these two items here. And Miri Mari on Ravelry, whose name is not on her profile, she's from Germany, says, I really do enjoy your podcasts. There is one question, however, not knitting related, about the objects hanging on the wall between the windows and the mantelpiece. They've caught my eye when I watch your podcasts. Usually only one is visible, but there are at least 2, is that right? Yes, there are 2. There are no more, it's just 2. And what are they? Just wondering if they're made from glass or ceramics. They're plates They are ceramic. They come from a company called Poole Pottery, Poole. Poole is a place on the south coast of England, in the county of Dorset, and they have a very specific style, Poole pottery. They're very much of the time. I've got a lot more Poole pottery scattered around the room. It's Ben's actually. I say I've got it. It's all Ben's. He collects a certain type of plates, and this one here is called the Sun. And this one, which you can't really see, is called the Sun in Eclipse. So that's why they're being displayed together, because they are both solar in theme. They're really heavy. They are limited edition. I think most of the ones we've got, looking around, I think most of the ones we have are seconds, so they're not as valuable as some of the others. I mean, they're not thousands of pounds, even the ones that are not seconds, but they are very, very attractive objects, and we like them enormously. I hope that answers your question. If you're watching this and you have a question that you want to ask, head over to the group on Ravelry and post it in the podcast questions thread, which is there waiting for your kind attention, and I will do my best to answer as succinctly and eloquently and completely as I possibly can. So let's move on. I've just been talking about my dictionary. We may as well move into today's grammar rant. It's not really a grammar rant at all. It's just sort of a bit of, I want to impart some information, which I recently discovered, which I thought might be quite interesting to people. I was asked, I don't think it was on the podcast questions, it might have been on another thread, what I thought of the word conversate. Conversate. I suspect that the look on my face is telling you everything you need to know about how I feel about the word conversate. Well, there's just no need for it, is there? We have a perfectly good verb about talking with one another, and it's to converse. Conversation is the noun. We don't need anything in between. We have the verb, to converse, and the noun of it, conversation. So I found, however, an interesting article on this very subject. And it's on english.stackexchange.com, where there's a lot of very, very well-informed people talking about this stuff, and all of this makes perfect sense. It's not got any citations or any references attached to it, but it all sounds very plausible, so I thought I'd share it with you. These 8 back formations. Back formation is a word, is a formation that came later, so kind of probably in error. These 8, as in conversate, back formations happen because most nouns ending in ation have a corresponding verb ending in ate, but not all of them do. So fabrication comes from a verb to fabricate, which does end in ate, so the noun form became ation. With me? But converse does not end in ate, so when it became ation, people thought, well, if you've got fabrication and fabricate, you have conversation and conversate. It doesn't work like that, people. We all know that English has laws and rules that it breaks more often than it adheres to them. At some point in the past 400 years, the suffix ment, M-E-N-T, which was used as a common way of converting verbs to nouns, as in to govern and then government, was overtaken by the more productive ation. There were so many ate verbs springing up in English that could all be suffixed with shun, that this ation string was reanalyzed in English as a separate suffix in addition to ate and ion. So suffixes are obviously the bits that happen at the ends of words, the things you can add to words that change their meaning, and they come in little chunks. So ate is a suffix, and ation has become a larger suffix, but it became a suffix in its own right because it's ate and shun. It's complicated stuff, but stick with me. And it could, so the ation became a suffix in its own right that could be attached to verbs that did not end in ate. Like with converse becomes conversation rather than conversement. It could easily have developed into the word conversement, like govern becomes government, but it didn't. Nowadays, ment is more or less unused while ation continues to be popular. For example, all verbs ending in eyes to realise, to specialise, can be converted to isation, even though there are no isate verbs at all. So you have specialisation, commercialisation, but you don't have commercialisate, you don't have specialisate, you don't have it, you specialise, commercialise. And likewise, verbs ending in ify, like simplify, become ification, like simplifications. You don't have simplificate, you just have simplify. So you don't have conversate, you have converse. Don't get me riled. It says here, sometimes people can create, hang on. So with an ation verb, there are always two possibilities to create a verb. Subtract ion and get an ate verb, or subtract ation. That's what happens. Some people create an ate form spontaneously when none existed, either because of speech error, a lack of awareness of the original verb, or perhaps because the ate form sounds better prosodically. I'm not sure that I can think of any examples to help you with what that means. There is often a resistance to such change, and so most of these back-formed ate words don't extend beyond dialectical use, or don't even take hold at all. But very occasionally, the ate form can become standard, as orientate arguably has in UK English. Now that leads us on to another thing entirely. If something is correctly oriented, or is it correctly orientated? Now, further down the list, there's a to me, very interesting response to this, talking about some of these back formations mentioned above are useful as they have a slightly different meaning from the original verb. To commentate, from the word commentator, indicates a formal role that the subject is performing, that is, providing opinions as a recognised authority, that the verb to comment does not. To comment just means to comment on something, but if you're commentating, to commentate, then it sort of suggests that you have a recognised position of authority from which to do so. In the same way, orientate, from orientation, implies, so orient was the verb and orientation became the noun, because they're now back formed into orientate, implies going through a formal orientation program that orient does not. To orient just means to like put something the right way up, but to orientate something, it makes it feel like you when you're in a new job, you get orientated, you get told exactly what's going on. So it has become standard form because it has a use which is distinct and separate, and I will say the word discrete, from the more usual older version of it without the ATE. So I suspect, I mean, who knows how language evolves all the time? I mean, it just does. It's organic. But I suspect that where there is a specific use for this other non-standard version of a word, like to commentate rather than to comment, and to orientate rather than to orient, I guess then there's a reason for that word to continue to exist rather than to be smacked down. I cannot think of a single reason for conversate to exist. It's just not there. It's just really not there. So please cease and desist. And we will converse on the matter no more. I was going to say something else then. I can't remember what I was going to say. Oh well, it doesn't matter. It's gone. So let's move straight on then to this week's favourite topic of What's That? I don't know why I started it, but the OCD in me can't let it stop. I'm sorry. Today I would like to talk about, I've got quite a lot of Native American symbols on my arm. I've discussed a couple of them in the past, but I want to talk about my arrows. I've got 3 different symbols that all incorporate arrows, as in that kind of arrow, archery type things, with an arrow head and fletching. Not really the kind of things that you see at archery, which just tend to have a point, but you know, proper Native American arrowheads. Great. And here they are. They're very simplistically drawn because they should be. Here's one here. There's a single arrow, and then here we've got the crossed arrows, and then around here I have the broken arrow. Much larger, that one. Can you tell I had 2 different tattoo artists? That one is the broken arrow. So what do they mean? Well, the single arrow on its own, the complete single arrow, that means protection. And so for me, there's the two ways of looking at that. I wear it on my arm to gain protection, symbologically speaking, but also it's a reminder to me that there are things in the world that need protecting, be that people or ideals or concepts or grammar, that I can also play the part of the protector wherever necessary, and that I should where I can. That's kind of all wrapped up in that for me. The crossed arrows, like that, that's very simply just means friendship. And I think friendship is something that's so important in life. The reason I have it on my arm is that friendship matters to me a great deal, and that's the friendship of family, the friendship of a loved one, or friends that you've known for a very long time, or friends that you haven't necessarily known for a very long time. All of these people, all of these different interactions that we have with people in our lives colour and enrich our lives in ways that would never happen without those people. A different set of friends would make me a different person. So I value the friends that I have in my life enormously, and represent them on my arm with the Native American symbol for friendship of the crossed arrows. Now the broken arrow, this one, flaring, there we go. This one here, it can show up in two forms. It can be the two parts of the arrow, 1 and 2, but it can also be shown with the sort of the fletched end of the arrow. No, get this right. In front of the pointy bit. So normally an arrow would have its, see if I can make hand symbols to make this work. So if here's my arrow, so this is the feathers at one end and here's the arrowhead at the other end, that would be an arrow, but you can also see it broken so that the arrowhead is pointing at the back of the fletching. That really hurts my shoulders being in that position. 42 next week. So it can be seen both ways. In fact, I do have, I don't know why I didn't just come straight to this, I can show you straight away. So, or can I? Can I on the screen? So, where is it? I can't even see it. Oh, here we are. So you can see at the top there, the broken arrow meaning peace, which I didn't get onto. That's what it means. It means peace. So you've got my version at the top there, and then behind it, underneath it, sorry, you've got the arrowhead pointing at the fletchings. Now it means peace, and that's a beautiful thing, because I love how this came to mean it. If you think about what an arrow is, it's very much in the culture of Native American people, it's very much a symbol of war. You know, protection, yes, but to protect themselves. It's interesting that the arrow became protection rather than aggression. So it was about defense rather than offense, and I think that says quite a lot about the Native American tribes people, that they were defending themselves, they were protecting themselves rather than going out to cause harm to other people. But it could be easily seen as a symbol of war. And to break that symbol, to get through war and into peace, I think is quite a moving thing. And of course, heaven knows this world needs peace at the moment, doesn't it? Doesn't it really? There's too much hate going on. We need a little bit more love and a little bit more peace and a little bit more friendship. So that's why I want to talk about my Native American arrows today. And that is the end of... I'm just looking at the clock, see what time I'm on. That is the end of today's What's Tat section. Thank you very much. Now, there is something I do want to talk about. Coming up next weekend, so a week on Saturday, this will be the 25th. Oh, I'm not 42 next week, I've got 2 weeks to my birthday. Oh, don't wish it away, Nathan, really. So, but next weekend, so not this coming Saturday, but the following week, which I believe is the 25th, 26th, I'm going to France. And I'm going to France with Ben and the National Youth Music Theatre and the cast of Brass, which many of you will know this already, but the Brass is a show that the NYMT commissioned Ben to write in 2014. and it was performed up in Leeds then. And the reason it was performed in Leeds was because it's a Leeds-based story. It's about a group of men who go from a brass band in Leeds to go and fight in the trenches at the front in the First World War in France. And it was 2014, so it was 100 years since the beginning of the First World War, and there were lots of centenary celebrations, or commemorations I should say, going on at that time, which I'm sure many people will remember. Now, it was an incredibly successful show. It is brilliant, and the cast recording has been recorded, and I've waxed lyrical about it on this podcast many times, but I'm incredibly proud of it, of Ben for it, I should say. And the joy is that the NYMT have decided to remount a production this year, and it's going to be on in London at the Hackney Empire, which is a beautiful theatre. I performed there myself with the Rocky Horror Show, and it's going to be performed in August. And the reason why they're doing it this year is because 2016, rather than 2014, is the 100th anniversary of the first day of the Battle of the Somme. And it was at the Battle of the Somme that so many people lost their lives, and the guys from the Leeds Pals Battalion particularly were massacred on the 1st of July in 1916. So we are going to France as close as we can to the actual date. Now, the 1st of July wouldn't have been possible. There's a cordon around the whole area over the actual anniversary, I think, just to protect it and to protect the people who live and work there. However, so 6 days beforehand is the closest we can get. So what Ben has done is he's organised a coach trip. There's a coach coming down from Leeds, because a lot of the cast are from Up North, and then it's going to stop off in London and pick up us Southerners, and then we're going to drive through the night, Saturday, get the ferry from Dover over to Calais, and then drive down to, it's near Albert, if that puts it on the map for you, to the spot where the Leeds Pals went over the top, where they were entrenched, and where they climbed over the top and walked uphill and in bright sunlight towards the German guns who mowed them down. And it's going to be incredibly powerful. So I think for all of these, the cast of brass are all age specific. They're all the same sort of age as the characters that they're playing would have been at the time. And I think for them it's going to be incredibly powerful. For me it is. I've been there several times, and it's, I think, having the cast there and being there at dawn as well, so close to the 100th anniversary of when these events actually happened in that spot. To be honest, I don't know how I'm going to cope. I think it's going to be quite extraordinary. And we've got 4 trumpeters from the band of brass who are going to play the version of the last post that happens in the show. Ben has done a special arrangement of the piece. It's done sort of like in echoing, so it's exactly the tune ba ba that you'll recognise. You'll recognise the tune, but it's played in canon, so every instrument is like one beat behind the other, and you get this sort of echoing heterophonic effect, which is really quite moving. And they're going to play that, which I think will be really upsetting, as well as the cast are going to sing one of the songs from Brass, which is the one that feels like the most fitting tribute to the men who actually did lose their lives there. It's a song where the lyrics are, "Just remember my face so I can visit you in my dreams. Pack your bags for an adventure and we'll visit all the places that we've never seen. So if I never make it home, we'll still have wonderful memories. So remember these eyes and this chin and this smile and the dimples where my glasses used to be. So when my journey ends, you'll always have a friend." I can barely get through it without filling up now. So it's all about the wish that these men had to be remembered, knowing that they probably wouldn't make it home, remembered by their loved ones. So why am I telling you all this before it's happened? Because normally I don't talk about things that are coming up, I talk about things in retrospect on this podcast. Well, there's an appeal on at the moment to raise enough money to make it all happen. The coach costs £1,500 or something, plus travel costs, and there's going to be costs for the food. So all of the kids who are coming have paid a sum. They paid £40 each, which was all that Ben felt that he could really charge them for doing it, because they're students, they're young people, they're aged between 16 and 22, I think. So they're not, and none of them are sort of working adults getting on with their lives yet. They're all still in training, they're still students, they're still school kids in some cases. So Ben didn't feel that he wanted to cover the whole cost with them. So there is an appeal, and if anybody, this is not, you're under no obligation to do this, but if anybody feels that this is something that they would like to support, there is a page set up, and I'm going to put the link here on the NYMT website. I will also link to it in the show notes, and if anybody wants to share £5, £10 even, doesn't matter, then that would be great. We're still, it's happening soon, and we're still about £700 short of the total that we need at the moment to make it all happen, and it will be a very, very special event. Please don't feel under any obligation to do this, but if you think that you can and you would like to, so that's what's going on. So by the time I next talk to you, I will have a lot of things to say about it, because it will then be a past event. Also, what will be a past event by that point will be the STUKAL, the STUKAL for the Sockmaticians toe-ups, which is happening at the moment over on the group on Ravelry, and it's going really, really well. There's lots of people knitting socks from the Sockmaticians toe-up pattern or recipe, and I have sent out several updates to the pattern. Now I hesitate with this because I don't want people to think, oh, it's full of errors. It's not about that. It's about improving it. It's about developing it, and so I will continue to add developments, and even if it's just sort of changing the structure of how things are set out on the page to make it easier for people to see. I'm responding to feedback all the time, so and coming up with my own ideas as well. So there may be more things. None of it changes what's in the pattern. What's in the pattern works. I am confident about that. So I don't want people to lose faith in it just because I keep sending out the amendments. The amendments are there to improve things and add to what's there already. But I don't know why I even felt the need to say that, but I got a little bit nervous of sending out the last update because I'd sent out a couple before, and I just, listen, it's £2. It's not, I mean, even if it were dreadful, it's only £2. But I do want it to become the most flexible, the most useful recipe out there. I really, really do. So I'm going to keep evolving it and allowing it to change. But we've got in our FOs, there are 17 already finished objects, all looking fabulous in a variety of different colours. People have done different stitch patterns, people have gone for contrasting heels and toes, and oh, it's just brilliant. And some of them, this pair from Bar Bear, I'm not sort of picking out many people. Margaret from Adelaide in Australia, I love just the random colour changes. There's only 3 colours used, so they very much hang together as a pair, but you see the one that's hiding behind the other one, it changes colour halfway through the foot, whereas the other one doesn't. It's just brilliant. These are the kind of things, because I'm too OCD, my brain doesn't go there. I don't think to do things like that. And when I see them, I go, that looks brilliant. And I love that kind of stuff. So keep them coming, chaps. You've got until my birthday, the 30th of June, to complete your toe-ups. Many people have done several. A lot of people, which is really, really gratifying, have said that they suspect this will become their proper go-to recipe for toe-up socks in the future. And that's everything I could have hoped for it. I really wanted it to become useful, and it seems like it's finding its mark, which I'm incredibly happy about and proud of. So don't forget, there are prizes from wonderful Alison up in Lincolnshire. We have got this Blueface Leicester, which is orange, and it's 4-ply sock. Is it? Yes, it's just Blueface. I want to check. It's just 100% Blueface Leicester, which is lovely. It feels really nice. And this very soft pink and sparkly, soft in colour of course, but soft also because it's got a bit of silk in it, 75% merino, 20% silk and 5% stellina for the sparkle. Those are two of the prizes. I'm going to be adding at least a pattern download for another prize. Hopefully there'll be some other things that I can think of as well. So if you are thinking about entering, there's still plenty of time to do it. You just need to have your completed picture up in the STUKAL, the STUKAL finished objects thread on my group on Ravelry by the 30th of June, by the end of the 30th of June. Listen, I ain't gonna lock that thread on the 30th, it's my birthday. So if you run, and also because the 30th of June is going to end here before it ends in the US. So by the time I close the thread, as long as your socks are in there, then that will be absolutely fine. Yes, you can enter as many times as you like with many different pairs of socks. If you're a very fast, super keen sock knitter and you really enjoy making the toe-ups, then you can. And you can amend it and modify it. You can add different stitch patterns rather than just a plain vanilla sock. All of that is absolutely fine. Please, however, do be a member of the group. Don't just be a guest in the group. Do like and subscribe and sign up and show me that you care. And then you'll show me that you deserve the chance to win. Okay, let's move on to stash enhancements. So last time, I showed you the wonderful blue Hawaii sock yarn from Zena. Hello, Zena. If you hear anything jingling, it's my watch. It has it's a little bit loose around the bezel. Can you hear that? That's what that noise is. That was from Zena, thank you Zena, which I haven't started. It might be my next pair of socks. I'm still working on my rainbow socks at the moment. It's a long story, I'll get to that in a minute. But I do have some stash enhancements to share this episode as well. When was it? Wednesday, so not yesterday, but a week ago, I was on the lookout for some sock yarn in. I didn't have a specific colour. I'm just taking my shoes off. I don't know why I've got my shoes on. I'm in the house. I was looking for a specific style, I should say, of colours rather than a colour itself. So I didn't really know what I was looking for, but I needed 4 complementary colours that would work well together, because I've been working on a scarf design for a while, charting it out, double knitting of course, naturally, and it's quite intricate and it's quite detailed, and I'm really looking forward to seeing it come together. I'm stalling a bit because I am agonising whether or not to show you what I've done on it so far. I'm certainly going to show you the wool, but whether or not I get to whips later on, I do sort of want to show the finished object and go, look at this. I want to sort of unleash it on the world, but I'm really enjoying it and I might want to talk about it later. I'll decide when I get to that point, I think. So I went over to my wonderful friend Anna Feldman, who owns and runs Wild and Woolly in northeast London, and it's just a wonderful little shop. If you're in London or if you're visiting London anytime soon and you haven't heard of Wild and Woolly, please do take the time to check it out. It's a very little shop, but Anna's got a really lovely selection of stuff, and she does brilliant things with getting the knitting community together. She's involved with the North London Knitting Triangle with 2 other shops, which is doing a special kind of yarn crawl day coming up, and then just doing she hosts classes. I've taught there a couple of times. I did a double knitting workshop there and a one-handed brioche workshop as well, and she's just brilliant at bringing community together, and I adore her. And I went over there because I thought, do you know what? I know she sells one particular dyer's work, and I'd never bought any of this dyer's work before, but I thought, I like her stuff. She's a friend of mine. I'll name her. It's Larissa. Hi, Larissa. Larissa is Travel Knitter, and I bought 4 skeins. basically I knew I was going to go there and get some travel knitter stuff. I didn't know what colours, but I knew her colours are so deep and so saturated. And for double knitting, I am a massive fan of quite solid colours. For socks, be as variegated as you like. For anything that involves colour work, I feel that a lot of people get it a little bit wrong, and they'll use yarns that are a little bit too variegated. I've fallen into this trap myself many times. You think, oh, that's so beautiful. Oh, and that's so beautiful as well. It's put together. Great, they look lovely together. And then you work the pattern, you go, well, I can't actually really see the design of the detail of the design. And you go to all that work with double knitting. I want the design of the colour work to do the work rather than the yarn sort of interfering with that. That's how I feel about it. And I know that Larissa does some fantastic saturated, highly saturated, solid colours. Here they are. I'm just going to bring them all onto screen together. I have Instagrammed these 4 cakes, so you will have seen them before if you follow me on Instagram, but oh my word, look at those. Just completely and utterly gorgeous. These 4, it's fingering weight yarn. Oh, actually, the further away I go, the better colour representation you get. This orange on the end over here is so rich and vibrant. This looks a little bit mustardy, but it's actually a vibrant gold. This purple is so rich and deep and opulent. And this, Ben and I argue about this. He calls it green, I say it's blue. I would definitely call that blue, but it's like a sea, an ocean blue. Aren't they so beautiful? And the joy of these, because they are very much a set, you can put them together in kind of any pairing you like, and the contrast is amazing. And they go together so well. I don't know how many I've done. There are clearly going to be 6 combinations. They're just beautiful. They are absolutely gorgeous. So Larissa, I don't know if you watched, but if you are watching, thank you so much for this. For what I mean by that is, thank you so much for dyeing such wonderful colours. That's what I mean. I'm very glad to have bought them from you. That sounded a little bit odd. So here's Larissa's, here are the ball bands, travel knitter, and what does it say? It's a BFL super sock, so it's 75% superwash BFL and 25% nylon. So that's going to be really hard wearing if you wanted to do these in a pair of socks. Amazing. It's a really generous yardage as well. It's 425 metres per 100 grams, and hand dyed in Walthamstow in East London, which is where Larissa lives. And they're only £16 per skein through Wild and Woolly. Larissa does have an Etsy store called travelknitter.etsy.com. I'll show you. I'll put it on screen. You can also find her at travelknitter.com, and it's really lovely stuff. It's good hard wearing stuff. It's not this is the kind of stuff which is not going to be. Don't expect it to be cashmere soft. It isn't. It's a really, really strong, tough, hard-wearing sock yarn, and I think these colours just speak for themselves. Aren't they just beautiful? I love them. So that was the major part of my stash enhancement. I went in there, I came out with those, and I thought, I am a happy man. So that should be enough to finish the scarf that I've got in mind. It's not. I'm knitting it on quite small needles, and it's got quite short rows, only 59 pairs of stitches per row, rather than some which I've done within sort of 70 or 80. So I'm thinking that one skein of each should definitely be enough to see me through, and I'm going to be having different pairs of those 4 colours working all the way up the scarf. Oh, so it's not a 4-colour pattern, it's lots of 2-colour patterns that I'm going to be putting together in the way that I think looks fabulous. Then I also went in because I wanted to pick Anna's brain about lace weight yarn. I don't know a great deal about lace weight yarn or the people that make it, because I don't ever knit with it. keen watchers of this podcast will possibly remember that I had bought 2 or 4 actually gorgeous skeins of Eden Cottage lace weight yarn, silk content quite high, I can't remember what it's called, but the pale blue and the pale green, absolutely beautiful. And I decided not to use them for a specific project because, gorgeous though they were, it was going to be a project on a very, very fine gauge, and the 2 colours didn't have high enough contrast between the 2. If you looked at them, you'd think, well, that's green, that's blue, great. But when you saw them mixed in together, they're very similar in terms of saturation. My error, completely. Gorgeous yarn, can't wait to find something else to use them for. And I've just gone into stash, and I'm very happy to own it because I know that I'll find the perfect project for it at some point. But that project that I wanted to use them for has still been ruminating, and something that I've wanted to get a hold of yarn for. And I just thought, you know what, it needs to be black and white. Ben was right, he told me he wanted it to be black and white, and he's absolutely right. But I thought, black lace weight yarn, I just didn't know of any such thing. So I went in to talk to Anna at Wild and Willing when I bought the travel knit stuff, and she said, well, there is a company that I've got this swatch card for, and it's called Findlay lace weight. It comes from a company called Juniper Moon. Now, I hadn't bought any Juniper Moon stuff before, and this is, I bought it on spec really, because I'd said to Anna, because it's lace weight and because it's going to be worked on a fine gauge, I need to have something that's going to have a really high twist and not be really fluffy halo-y. So I want it to have good stitch definition. And she looked at this and she found this photograph, and I looked at it, examined it, and it looked perfect. It is 2-ply, of course. It's 50% merino and 50% silk, so it's got a lovely sheen to it, a real nice drape. And I ordered online 2 balls of the black, which is Midnight, and 2 balls of the white, which is called Snow. And it's 798 yards per 730 meters per 100 grams. So it's not the thinnest lace weight. I think that's going to suit my purposes very well, in fact. Now, they sent me a very nice email saying from Findlay Moon saying that they were currently out of stock with the white, and that will probably be coming a little bit later. But the black has arrived, and here it is. Brown on here. No, it's jet black. Really, really is jet black, and it's Juniper Moon. It does say here hand wash only. All the rest of it's made in Italy. It's really soft. It's really, really lovely, and I don't know how well you can see that on there, whether it's really showing up, but it has got high twist, and it is not fluffy. So I think it's going to be perfect, and with that silk content, it's really nice. And it's going to be a scarf, and it's not something I'm going to share until it's done. However, bear with me. It's a long scarf, which is going to be about 6 or 7 feet long. It's double knitting, it's lace weight, it's going to be on 2mm needles. It's going to take me a long, long time. It's got about 90 pairs of stitches per row. It's clearly an insane project. Clearly I am completely mad. What else would you have come to expect from me by this stage in our friendship? I'm really looking forward to it. Also, the pattern has no repeats. It's photorealistic. It has no repeats at all. I'm going to be a slave to the chart. It's going to be absolute hell. But it's so going to be worth it when you see the end product. It's going to take me a couple of years, I think. So that's my stash enhancement. There will be more from Juniper Moon when the white eventually comes, but it hasn't arrived yet, so I'm putting off doing that. Now, in terms of, let's move on, whips, let's go straight in. I've really only got one thing to show you, and this is my bag from Leanne, Kilts and Quilts. Thank you, Leanne, from New Zealand. It's the rainbow socks. Here's the one that you've seen, finished. This is the Misty Alpaca hand-painted sock yarns. I'm getting on really, really well with the second sock. I haven't had a huge amount of time to knit it and to work on it. But I'm certainly way past the heel. I'm using my STUs. And I've got my stitch marker here, progress marker, just to where I finished doing the shaping for the heel, so that I can just easily count how many rows I've done. This one's deliberately a long sock, but I haven't actually compared the two. So, I'm well over halfway up the leg. I've probably got another maybe 20 or 30 rounds to go. But I'm really enjoying it, working with this Misty Alpaca. It's really, really nice. It looks beautiful in the ball. Look at that, just stunning. The colours are absolutely beautiful. It's alpaca, silk, nylon. It's just yummy. It's so, so nice. These are some of the softest and yet hardest wearing socks you could imagine. One of my first ever pairs, or my first ever design of socks, were the Cancello socks I made out of the same base. They're really going strong. They're doing ever so well. So it's all just gorgeous, and I really, really love it. So I'm hoping to finish this very, very soon. So next time I podcast will definitely be an FO. I have done some more work. Genuinely, I've done another evening's work on my piano number 3, which I'll get it. It's just here. That's not really dead camera time. It's here. Look, it is getting longer. It really is. All of my knitting time recently has been entirely taken up on the project with these 4 colours. So I've you know what it's like when you have a new cast on, you just get excited about it. That's what I've done. But this is definitely getting longer. It is slow going, but I really, really like it. I'm really enjoying doing it. And if you can see how it's all developing, it's just, it's a joy. It really is. And I love how the pattern is. You can really see the shape of the Giuseppe Fiano space filling curve working its way along here. It's all one continuous fabulous line, or at least it will be. That's going to go up there when I've got more of it done. It's quite a large repeat on this, so I haven't yet worked my way through one section of the repeat. This base is so gorgeous. It's Easy Knitter, John Dunballum. It's his cherished base. It is so, so lovely. I really do love it. So that's that. It is coming. So it is definitely a whip. I'm sort of embarrassed. I keep trotting this one out. The problem is I do tend to do quite long, far-reaching projects. The odd sock is fine to turn around, or a hat turn around very quickly, but a scarf goes on for a long time. So you're going to hear quite a lot about the same projects each time. One of the things, I don't know if I've mentioned this before, but I'm really, really pleased, a little bit of an innovation of mine, I think I may have spoken about this before, is the edges of this. There's, which way are we going? One of the sides, because I'm working on the bias, one of the sides has increases, that side, and one of the sides has decreases. And what you do, I'm trying to work a way of getting, it works perfectly, is a way of getting my decreases right incorporated into the slip stitch edging. So I'm very happy that that's come about. I didn't do it at the beginning, and I actually did my increases one stitch away, my decrease, sorry, one stitch away from the edge. I don't know if you can see the difference actually. Here you can see these long stitches on the top, they're the slipped stitches, and then just here you can see another diagonal set of stitches. Well, they're the ones where I was doing the decreases one stitch away, and then from that point on I started this new way, and there's no line of diagonal stitches apart from these long ones from the edge there. So it's much, much more accurate and much more a pair to what's going on the other side of the scarf. So that kind of symmetry makes me a very, very happy man. So there we are, there is something to talk about. Should I show you or should I not? I could be really brave with myself and say no. I'm going to show you. I've just got no willpower at all. So I've been having some discussions on Ravelry. yeah, with somebody, and my mind has gone blank. I'm so sorry. I'll put the details here. We've been chatting quite a lot. Oh my goodness, I can't remember your reverend name at all. Anyway, very, very lovely lady, kind lady who has put me onto a book of 16th century needlework patterns called Il Borato, and it's the one that one of the patterns became the cowl, which I wasn't going to show this week, but it's over here. Just I can remind you, this hasn't yet been blocked, so it's still curling a bit, but this is the pattern that came from one of the patterns that comes from that book. And what I love about using these old traditional patterns is, shall we? No, it's not. That's someone else. What I love about using these traditional patterns is it really gives you a sense of a link to centuries old artists. The man who put these patterns together, whether or not he designed them himself or whether he just collected them, he was making these woodcut prints for the illustrations in like 1547. It's like 470 years ago this was happening, and today I can turn that into something beautiful that we can wear in the 21st century. I love that, and in the doing of it, I'm using techniques that have, knitting and tools that go back hundreds of years, which, although I use circular needle and they're metal, and the yarns can be commercially produced, but it gives you a pathway right back through history. So I love doing that. This book is full of loads of patterns. I could have done hundreds of scarves out of it, but what I wanted to do was something really, really intense and use as many patterns from the book as I can, put them all together. So what I've done, and some of them aren't symmetrical necessarily. I have tidied things up a little bit and made it work for the width of the scarf that I've got, but I've tried to be as honest and faithful to the original of what's in the book as I possibly can. Alright, it's got a few loose ends on it because obviously I'm changing colour, but this is what it looks like so far. I love it. What can I tell you? So this is already, I'm into the fourth pattern, and yeah, they're all different widths, they're all different styles of design, but they all work together very, very well. And these colours just, it looks like some sort of rich Eastern woven carpet. I really, really love it. I'm talking carpets, picked something up from the carpet. But they're just so beautiful. I mean, a pattern like that would make a beautiful scarf all by itself. And then we've got this one, which is so geometric. It doesn't look like it would have come from quite that long ago, but it really does. And you can see on the reverse as well, these interlinked shapes. It's just stunning. This one that's coming here is a sort of wavy pattern. They just all work together so well, and the whole scarf is not going to have any patterns repeating. There are enough patterns there to just have completely individual iterations of a pattern all the way up the scarf, never repeating, always looking gorgeous. So I'm going to mix up the colours as much as I possibly can, have different pairings. They are all deliberately, I mean not deliberately, but I have deliberately used them as different widths and not tried to standardise them the way I would have done in the Sanka scarf or something like that. So I want it to be as much of just a coming together of all these patterns as possible. But I am really, really falling in love with my Il Borato scarf. It's been quite a while since I've done any just plain double knitting, as in with no shaping, with no cables, with no lace or anything like that, and just letting the two colours of the pattern do the work for me, and I'm really, really enjoying it. So I've done this in about a week. Well, less than a week, yeah. Yeah, because I only bought the yarn a week ago, so that's just less than a week's worth of knitting. And I've been doing a lot of work and other things as well, so I haven't had a great deal of time. It is flying off the needles. can't wait to get back stuck into it. I love it. So there we are. Do you know what? I may or may not share progress on this every week, but I may save it for every other episode or something like that. So I'm aware that I'm losing the ability to form coherent sentences today. I'm a little bit tired. I've done 3 10-hour shifts at work, and it's just, as I referenced earlier, it's been a bit of an emotional time. So I'm clearly very tired. I hope that's okay. I hope I've burbled on and made some semblance of sense. This is knitted with, these are my Chow Gu. These are fixed actually, these are fixed circulars. They're too small to be part of the interchangeable set that I have. These are actually 2.5mm needles. It's quite small. And I cast on 2mm needles. I did the original cast on here. Now the invisible cast on for double knitting will flare. It will really stretch out like that. If you do it at the same size needle. So I do, did I do 2 rows? I do the cast on and then knit the first 2 rows, regardless of whether there's a border or whether there's colour changes. I always knit the first 2 rows in the smaller size needle, and then I go up to the needle that I want for the fabric that I want to create. And that has entirely stopped the flare. Look how square that is at the bottom. Lovely! Oh, it's just going to be so gorgeous. I can't wait to just, the colours look so rich and opulent. This is going to be a really luxurious looking scarf. I cannot wait. Just gorgeous. Gorgeous! So there we are. That's pretty much it for this week. I hope your own knitting is going very, very well. I'd love to hear what you're working on, particularly if you're working on any of my patterns. Please do feel that you can share how you're getting on with me. I really, really do get quite a kick out of seeing people working on a pattern that I've designed, even if it's not part of a cal or anything like that. I really do enjoy the idea of seeing. Oh, do you know what? Before I go, I was rambling then, but I've just started knitting the sock, and I've been working. I'm a magic looper when I knit socks. When I work anything in the round, really, I'm always magic loop, and I have been on a quest for ladder-free magic looping. So I thought maybe perhaps now would be a good time to talk about it, because I'm actually quite pleased with how this one is coming along. So this is where the needle break is. You can see that because there's the loop there. Let me just make sure I don't lose any stitches. It's pretty much, I mean, I'm not going to guarantee that this works at all, works 100%, but there's not really a great deal to see there. You need to stretch it out. I mean, perceptibly, perhaps. It's almost imperceptible. And this is all down to something that occurred to me. This is, no words, don't know what's wrong with me. I have long been of the opinion that Magic Loop doesn't need to have ladders. People say it comes from all sorts of things, and there are all sorts of tips out there where people say you can, you know, if you pull the first stitch of a needle really, really tight, then people say, well, if you don't pull the first stitch tight, if you pull the second stitch really, really tight. And I was thinking, well, do you know what? If you do that, then you're robbing those stitches of the amount of yarn that they would normally have. In the middle of a needle, a certain stitch has a certain amount of, I call it finding the bounce point. You know, you don't want it to be too loose, you don't want it to be too tight, but you certainly don't want it to be too tight. So why, therefore, would pulling tight at the beginning or the end of a needle be a useful thing to do? So then I thought, well, perhaps it's actually not the ladders come, because so many people have said on forums online, oh, you know, the tighter I pull, I'm pulling so tight, and I still don't seem to get ladder free, or just split the yarn there. Still don't seem to get ladder free socks, and it made me think that perhaps the opposite is therefore true. So perhaps tightening the yarn is robbing that stitch of yarn and causing it to perhaps shrink up, which is what's giving the ladder space on either side. So I experimented with leaving more than usual, or at least not pulling at all, and I was getting somewhere with that, but I was still getting a ladder, and I was very conscious of making sure that the first and last stitch of each needle ended up with exactly the same amount of slack yarn or give to it as any middle needle stitch. So I was fairly convinced that I was doing that quite consistently, and then I was still seeing a bit of laddering. It was better, so I actually think pulling stitches tight is not the way to go at all, but it was better, but I was still seeing a bit of laddering. So I think that there must be something more to it. So what is that thing that could be more to it, and how can we circumvent that? And I realised that one of the things that you don't get with DPNs is the cable causing stress by pulling the two stitches apart. So here you can see there's quite a bit of a gap there between the last stitch of the needle and the first, or the last stitch of this needle and the first stitch of the next one. And I think that a lot of that is to do with DPNs will just sort of lie on top of each other, but the cable has boing in it, has bounce to it. And I was thinking, well, it's sort of forcing things apart. So unless you can find a way of not letting that happen and keeping the cable up there with the needle so they feel like they're in one continuous journey, then that's going to cause the stress. And then I thought about that a little bit more and thought, okay, well, why does this stress distort the stitches? And what it's doing is it's pulling the yarn out of the stitches. So it's not about pulling it tight, because you do want to have the same amount of yarn in each stitch for consistent stitching. But even if you've got that, if you're pulling those stitches apart, you're going to be tightening one and leaving gaps either side. So I thought, is there therefore a way of combating, not eliminating it, because I think it's just a product of how it works, and I believe there is. So I'm going to go behind my camera now, and I'm going to show you this as if, I'm going to try, as if I'm doing a tutorial, but normally I'm looking at the camera and doing it on the front camera. So here I am. Is that going to focus at all? This might not be possible. I tell you what I'll do is I will cut into this with some footage of me doing this, but basically this is pulling away quite a lot. Come a bit closer. This is pulling away quite a lot, and what it's doing is, you see this blue strand here, that is pulling yarn out of this blue, completely off the needle. I'll try that again, off the camera. This blue stitch here is being pulled, and it's pulling yarn out of this stitch here. So what I've decided I'm doing now is, when I insert my needle into the first stitch, I'm opening it up quite a lot. Can you see that? I'm literally stretching it out. And what that does is that pulls these two stitches, the green ones underneath, it pulls them together and pulls this blue running yarn into the stitch. But you say that's going to give me a loose and floppy stitch. Well, you're right, it does. But then I go into the second stitch and again open it out and pull that extra yarn out of that first stitch and into the second one, and then into the third stitch, and each one I do a little bit less than the other, and then by the third or fourth stitch I'm just knitting as normal. And I've really seen good results with that. I will add the other footage in here so you can see in close-up exactly what I'm talking about. This is what I was talking about with the laddering being caused by stress from the cable. It's very useful on these socks actually, because they're stripy, so you can see all of the different rows as different colours. Now I'm working with the purple stitches at the moment, but I'm also working into the orange stitches. I'm coming to the end of this round here, about to start there. But you can see already that because of the way the stitches have been pulled apart by the cable, these blue stitches, like the third stitches down, there's quite some gap there, and it's got this running orange yarn here, which has been stretched long. It's pulled a little bit too much out of this one, and it's making this one a bit tight as well. And so that is what's going to give us the extra space, which will create the ladder and the gap. At least that's how it seems to be to me. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into this stitch, and instead of just sort of going into it like that and knitting it, leaving behind this mess here, I'm going to go into it and I'm going to stretch it out. Now can you see what that's done? Is it's brought those two turquoise stitches close together. If I let go, they'll spring apart again. But if I go into it again, it's drawn them in together. Yes, of course, what it's done is it's elongated the orange stitch, and now that one's too long and loose and floppy. So how do I go? Look, see that? It's completely closed up those two stitches. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to do the same again, going to the next stitch and slightly open that up, closing that gap, bringing the orange stitch down into line with the other one, and knit that one. And then into the third stitch, just a little bit of opening up needed to, and then I'm back into normal knitting mode where I don't open up any stitches at all. And if you can see what that's done, is it's closed the gap completely. I've got a little bit of a gap between these two orange stitches now, but I will fix that on the next round by working to the purple stitches and elongating each one. So literally just going into it and just stretching it out. So pulling my two needles apart a little bit will close up this strand here and bring the stitches in the row below together. And that's how I've been doing it and becoming almost entirely ladder free. So that's what that is, and that is giving me really, really good results. So for me, it's not about pulling a stitch tight, it's about making sure that every stitch has the same amount of give and the same amount of slack yarn, regardless of where it is on your needle. But then you need to combat the stress put on the stitches by the cable by pulling them out and making sure that the amount of yarn that runs between one stitch and the next is not stretched out in any way, pulling that yarn back into the stitches and kind of hiding that sequentially in the next few stitches, and it's really, really working for me. So if that is useful to any of you, then I will be very, very delighted. I'm not planning to put a separate tutorial up online, although maybe I will, I don't know. Anyway, so that's what I wanted to talk about as my little discovery, which I hope will help not just sock knitters, but anyone who's knitting anything in the round. Maybe it will prevent ladders from forming in your work, and that will make me a happy man. I can't speak and knit at the same time. I can look at you and I can knit, and I can talk and I can knit when I'm looking down, but I can't really do all three together. Oh well. Anyway, that's me burbling on for quite long enough this time round. Don't forget to put all of your entries in the STUKAL. Please pop over to the group and say hello and have a little chat. I do love hearing from you. Instagram is a place where I am quite active, so if you do want to sort of get in touch, then have a look over there, follow me and then comment on things, and I always try to get back to as many people as I can in as many different forums as I can. So there's always a way of getting in touch, and I look forward to hearing from you. So now, this needle, this podcast episode might be a finished object, but remember, life is a work in progress. Just take it one stitch at a time. See you next time. Bye-bye.